specific question, you may request it. This evening, each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes. Our first speaker that has signed up to address the board is Brenda Rule. Rule, go ahead and approach the podium. Thank you. Sorry about the mispronunciation, Brenda.
Oh, that's okay, I've been called worse.
Okay.
It's Brenda Real, and the address is 1351 Beach Drive, Fargo, North Dakota. And I am a disability advocate with Protection and Advocacy in the Fargo office. Is it on? Okay. P&A is supportive of bringing additional services into existing school settings so that integration and inclusion can occur with students who do not have disabilities. P&A is not supportive of a separate school concept that creates segregation and separation of students with disabilities. Of significant importance is taking a concept of integration and ensuring that the full array of services are offered to students with disabilities through the school team or IEP team process. The school team or IEP should drive each individual student's educational decisions, and the services should be provided with the intent of full inclusion. School students need time. Should school students need time out of the regular education and full inclusion aspect of education, it should be time limited, and from the very first point of entry, active engagement of the team to ensure that it is fated. This will take a great deal of training, teacher and para support, and more than anything else, leadership to ensure that this concept is used well and not in a manner that becomes segregation. P&A remains eager to work with schools to realize this goal. We remain collaborative, but we do not support a separate school. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Our next speaker who is signed up to address the board is Katie Barnum. If you want to go ahead and address the podium, approach the podium. Thank you, Katie.
My name is Katie Barnum. I live at 3696 Polk Street South in Fargo. I have two sons who attend Fargo Public Schools. I want to share that there are many great teachers in Fargo Public Schools who are doing many amazing things with their students. There are great paraprofessionals working in special education who are doing amazing things with kids. There is also some natural talent in Fargo Public Schools in working with kids with autism in particular. And there are teachers and paras who want to do their best for each student each day. I'm very appreciative for all those individuals and their dedication to the students. Recently, there's been so much time and attention spent on building a new school for Level D services. Yet right now, there are special education programs in Fargo Public Schools that are not successful. There are teachers who aren't getting the training and resources they need. There are students who aren't getting the support their team agreed they need and wrote into their IEP. There are students in special education who aren't being taught academics in the individualized way that they need to learn, and they aren't making progress. There are special education programs in which special education teachers aren't being found to fill those roles. So general education teachers are being put into positions to fulfill the IEP special education instruction requirements without having that background or similar training to those teachers with a special education degree. Right now, there is a specialized program for autism in Fargo Public Schools in which the paras working with these kids are not required to have any more training on autism than any other para in the district. Yet they are being expected to carry out programming and supports for students with autism whose IEP teams have stated they need this individualized support around autism. So how does Fargo Public Schools expect to retain these paras if they are not being given what they need to be successful in their jobs? Right now, this program is serving just 3 kids, and the resources, training, and oversight needed to make it successful isn't being provided. I would ask how you plan to provide the resources, the training, and the oversight that you can't fund or provide now when you have a school for 32 or 64 kids in a brand new building. Wouldn't it be worth following a child's IEP now and helping them be successful now? How can special education services be improved upon now without waiting for a new building? I appreciate having the time to talk to you tonight, and if you have any questions or would like to speak to me about my son's special education situation, please feel free to reach out to me. I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Thank you, ladies. The next item on the agenda are staff reports, and we 4A is the FEA report.
Hello. Next week is National Education Week, and we have a few things planned. All next week will be Jean Week, where all staff are encouraged to wear jeans, at least $1 per day, and all that money will be going to the lunch aid. It'll go to the Fargo Public Schools Foundation, and it'll go towards the lunch aid assistance. So we're hoping to raise some good money there, and then it'll be matched during Giving Hearts Day in February, and so we can hopefully raise some nice money for that cause. Also, next Wednesday is National ESP Day, which is Educational Support Staff, and throughout North Dakota, we're doing their superheroes for the day, and so we're looking for people to wear capes and to support our superheroes that do such a wonderful job every day. So if you're in our schools next week, please plan to wear some jeans, give a donation to our lunch aid, and come say hello to our superheroes that work very hard every day with our students. We encourage you to step out into the schools and see them. Also, some great things happening. If you noticed at Claire Barton, they're doing a new pantry for students who are in need. A lot of our members are involved with that, and we're very proud of them to start that up and to help our community in any way that they can through that pantry. And last, FEA negotiation team is very pleased with the recommendations that were given to us last Thursday by the 3 advisors. We're looking forward to meeting with the school board again right shortly, hopefully after this meeting tonight, and going forward, and we want to meet with you and continue the negotiation process, and hopefully you are willing to come back to the table and meet with us as well. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Missy, would you like to make introductions?
Yes, tonight we have Mackenzie McCormick, who is our Director of the Safety and Emergency Management Reports, or Coordinator, and she is going to just give you an overview of what we have, because this position is relatively new to Fargo.
Hi, I am Mackenzie McCormick. I am the Coordinator of Safety and Emergency Management for the Fargo Public School District, and I was asked to come and do a short little snippet on who I am and what I've been doing for the past year, or year and change now. So I came from Jamestown Regional Medical Center before this, did the same type of work, just in a different setting. And before that, I was at NDSU receiving my degree in emergency management. So my year in a review and kind of what I've been doing, we'll start with policy work. So making changes to Administrative Policy 6510, Emergency Management. So what I did there was I more appropriately addressed what drills needed to be done and how those are to be conducted. Fire Code actually just made a recent change that instead of a fire drill every month, we are expected to do an evacuation drill every month. And evacuation drills are anywhere where the students move. So that was nice to kind of free up that constricting binding we had on just fire drills and kind of open it more to what if a pipe breaks in this wing of the building, moving children to a different area. Tornado drills can count as that. Shelter in place can count as that as well. So that was really nice. Also making changes to our previous lockdown policy and changing that more to a run, hide, fight approach to an active threat. We also did make a change to lockdowns in general. So we keep calling them lockdowns when really we're not scared for a threat. We just maybe need to close up the building so that we can get medical professionals in, or if we have police in there with dogs. So changing that focus to hallway closure instead of saying lockdown repeatedly was a nice change to make. I also am currently working with Cass Clay Unified School Response, which is a group of local school emergency managers as well as first responders and our county and city emergency management. Right now we are kind of addressing how we can standardize threat assessments among all of the schools in the Cass and Clay counties. So that'll be nice to have one standard threat assessment that can go from our school to potentially the next step that child has to go through, whether that be at Prairie or any sort of outside resource. I also had a strong devotion to training this year. So each year I try to have one large training push, and then the rest of my training I do supplements the previous year or years going towards the future. So this last year, the big push was towards the active threat. Throughout Fargo Public Schools, we didn't have a common practice. A lot of the buildings did their own thing. So we got all of the buildings onto that standard options-based approach to active threats, which is run, hide, fight. Some schools may use Alice or get out, hide out, take out. It's all the same premise. It's all options-based. It's just we call it run, hide, fight here, and other schools may call it something else. So we worked on getting training in that, making sure staff know what that run, hide, fight looks like, and making sure they know how to talk to their students about this. Also, going forward now this year, this school year starting in August, I have had a hard, strong push on our building emergency response team training. Each school has a BERT team, and that team is activated in a crisis. So that team may be activated in day-to-day practice for them if they do have high behaviors at their school, or it could be activated in a larger scale event, like maybe there was a tornado. So going through what that team is, who those people are in each school, what each person's role is, and then I go through a small tabletop exercise to really get them talking about hard situations and how they would handle that. I also make sure each school is doing their drills every month and making sure those drill requirements are met. We have to have an evacuation drill each month due to fire code. But on top of that, we also require 2 tornado drills and a hazmat drill, which can be part of that evacuation. And then we also require 3 lockdown drills. And usually what these schools do for lockdown drills is more of a lock and talk. So coming over the intercom, giving the school a scenario of there's a threat inside, there's a threat outside, or maybe there's just a police presence in that neighborhood. And then going from there, the staff have time to sit and talk with their students about what their next steps would be, what ideas they would have. Do they know where their nearest exit is? How would they decide to barricade a door, or what route would they decide to escape out of? And just figure out, do these kids know their school? Do they know how to defend themselves? What ideas do they have? Because sometimes students think of things that their teachers may not. We have received pretty great feedback on that as well. I know it can be scary to think of young children doing this, but a lot of times these young students have already heard about these situations on the news. So it's really nothing new to them. It's just that they now know that we have a plan and we don't have to be scared about it because our staff know what to do. Another piece that I've been working on is our infrastructure and technology. So every year we go through fire inspections. Every building is gone through by our fire department, and they give us corrections to make yearly. We have a couple buildings this year that had no corrections, so that's really exciting. But it's fairly unusual because there are a lot of small things that people just forget about. It can be as small as if you look up at our fire sprinklers, the little plate surrounding it. If that's missing, that's something they require us to fix. So it can be really small things that go unnoticed. So it's nice that they come in and do that every year so that we make sure our buildings are up to code and safe. So every year I go through the fire inspection process, get the work orders submitted, and make sure the work orders are completed, report back to the fire department to get our permits. Secure entrances have been a big push. So Jim has been working diligently on getting all of our buildings secure entrances, but it goes further than just the infrastructure. It goes into, are we stopping people from coming in, or are we just buzzing them in because they're at our door? So making sure staff know what questions to ask someone when they walk up to our door. Going forward in the future, I hope to get a better visitor management system in our buildings, because right now we just have a pen and paper sign-in. But that is something I'm working forward to. We also have panic buttons in our offices so that if there was an incident, our designated people know where those are. They can press a button and it alerts law enforcement. Every month we do have those tested because batteries do wear out on them and we want them to be able to be used in an emergency. We have also implemented nightly security that walks through all of our buildings to make sure that nothing's happening. And if the burglar alarms do go off, we then have security personnel arriving at that instead of our own staff. So that's been a really great piece. There are still some kinks to be worked out, but so far that's going very well. This last year, I also put together bus kits similar to our emergency red buckets that we have in every classroom. These kits go on the school buses and have emergency supplies that may be useful. Another part to what I've been doing, and kind of one of the larger final pieces that I'll talk about, is collaboration. The Fargo-Moorhead area is really great with collaboration, and we all rely very heavily on each other. So one of those pieces is CCUSR, which I mentioned earlier, Cast Play Unified School Response. This group prides ourselves on best practice and community training. So when I train the schools, it's something that all the other schools in the area are doing. And that helps first responders know what's going to happen when they get to a school, because all of the schools are the same. This group is also really great for our smaller communities. So looking at Barnesville or looking at Hawley schools, this group of myself, West Fargo, all of the surrounding law enforcements, we put together some really great resources for not only ourselves to use, but the smaller schools that don't have people like myself or Heather Lease from West Fargo. Fargo Police and our SRO group, I have a very successful collaboration with that group, and they let me know when things are going on in their building. I let them know when I hear about things that maybe we need to tweak a little bit on their side. So that has been a big piece for me, and that's part of my time with our monthly meetings and going out to their buildings to help them with things. Cass County and Emergency Management has been a big collaboration with me. I work with them frequently at our Fargo Emergency Planning Committee meetings, and then just overall, they help me with potential trainings or potential grants that are out there that could be very useful for our school district. We also have a great collaboration with our local churches and businesses. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but every school has 2 alternate locations to shelter at. So if they would have to evacuate a building, it would take likely an hour for our buses to get to them and bring them to reunification. So instead of having these students stand out in the cold, I've put together different sheltering arrangements so that they can easily walk to that area and shelter while they wait for buses. That is kind of my year in a review, plus and minus some things, I guess. But I am open to any questions you may have.
So that was only 1 year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McCormick? Quite impressive. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's very impressive to hear all of this, and hard to believe that we didn't have someone doing, dedicated to the work that you are doing. So fortunate for all of us that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is District Professional Development Day, and Jodelle Teichen, who is our Director of Standard-Based Instruction, will deliver that message.
Thank you for having me. I understand at a recent board meeting, you got a little glimpse of what our PD Day looked like on October 21st, and then I was asked to just share a little more maybe about kind of what professional development looks like in our district today. And so I'm going to try to do that in light of, I'll give you a little detail about October 21st, but I think just in general, what we try to do with professional development. I think one of the things, this is one of the quotes from some feedback we received from teachers on October 21st, and I think this sums up that day and maybe really how we try to approach professional development in the district. Giving teachers options to choose from, and really that mix between some national voice when we're bringing in new ideas or want to think about things that maybe aren't the same here in North Dakota as they might be in other areas of the country. Bring that to us, and then also really dig into some of the work with our local experts or folks that are in the classroom every day. And so we have a nice balance of that, I think, in our district with some of the things that we've built through professional development. One of the things you might think about when you think about PD is the Shields Arena. You know, everybody shows up in one area and there's a speaker and there's some really great things about that, right? I mean, you can have a common message. People can talk about some things all throughout the year because they've all heard that. There's a time and a place for that. There's also a time and a place for some real personalized learning. You know, these are some things that are really close to me in my class tomorrow. And I think we're trying to strike a balance with that when we look at how we're planning for PD and really listening to feedback from teachers. So just some stats about October 21st. In the choices, there were 189 sessions, 73 different presenters, and 11 tracks. And so a track, I could go in and choose the special ed track, for instance, and see all the offerings that were just for special education teachers. Or one of the tracks was self-care. That was a recommendation from our safety committee to have some offerings on self-care, and got some great feedback about those. Other kinds of, you know, something just for elementary teachers or, you know, just for certain groups of teachers. And so those different tracks help people find the sessions that they were looking for. While I'm the person standing up here, that's only because I wasn't organized enough to bring the team that really put this together, because honestly, there are so many people involved with putting a day like this together. We did this in October, but we also did something similar back in February last year where we had a whole day for this kind of professional development. And it's a big lift to do, you know, we have 800 teachers that come to the, you know, it's a lot. It's like putting on a conference. And so just so thankful for the help in both identifying the sessions and planning them, obviously leading them, but then the work that's done behind the scenes to pull that off. It does take a village for sure. So one of the groups that has been instrumental, I think, in planning our professional development, really to make it targeted and responsive to the teachers' needs, are our teacher leaders. And so we have what we call course captains at the secondary level, and then they're actually grade level captains at the elementary. But lots and lots of teachers, as you can see by the numbers here, that are involved in a couple of things, but one specific thing in this context is really identifying what are the professional development needs for your group, and then leading some of that. So if you were to look into the sessions that were offered that day, of those 189, probably about 80 of them were course-alike or grade-alike sessions where these teacher leaders actually led their teacher groups, really looking very specifically at the curriculum in their areas, what they're doing with assessments and curriculum development. In our elementary grades, we changed up some things on the progress report and, you know, just bringing that information forward and having conversations about that. Those are the kinds of things that you just can't get in an email, right? I mean, you have to have some face-to-face discussion about what does this look like and really have some time to tear into it. And you just couldn't do that in any other way if you didn't have people who were willing to step forward and say, you know what, I'll learn a little more about that and try to bring that back to my team. So these course captains really have been instrumental in doing that. We also have some district level facilitators that help with some of these things, but they really support the course captain work. And so a lot of our teacher leaders are the folks who both identify what we need, but then also help lead it. And this slide wasn't in your printed documents, but you know, it's always dangerous when you're trying to thank people, but I have to tell you, like, this is a group of people I just have to thank. So Karen Moore and Idette Graham work in this building, and the two of them really were the people who did a lot of the hospitality behind the scenes stuff as far as figuring out where we're gonna be, making sure there's snacks and coffee and all the stuff, people know where to go, communication, all kinds of things that go with that. So those two ladies were amazing, and then of course they communicate with all the folks back in the building. And so lots of our building level folks helped get that ready, because we had this in 2 sites, at North and at South. We learned from the last time, in February, we had one of the sites was a middle school, And of course, middle school students don't drive. And so it wasn't a big deal to not have parking for middle school students, but it kind of was when we needed it for adults. And so we just found that a middle school site didn't serve our needs the way we needed to. And then to have everyone in one site ends up being kind of too many people for the space. And so we ended up splitting it over a couple sites. So we've learned over the years. Stephen DeRoe, I have to mention him too. The software that we use to do registration is also super helpful in this effort because it helps communicate what's available, right? So it can kind of bring that to me, and he helps develop that. And then of course every year we kind of go back and make some tweaks and changes to that. So it's really nice to have a system that you can count on to make it work. Because while it's great to have all those options, you really have to make that work for people. And so these are the folks that really do that. And of course, our IT department is amazing. Our technology in the buildings works great. Our wireless is great. I mean, I feel like there's so many things that we kind of take for granted when we show up for PD with 800 people. You know, it all actually works. And so, and then of course, when we have little glitches, usually user error, they're there to help us. So really, lots and lots of people who help make that work. This question on the feedback form is the one that I usually go to first, because this one is the one that probably is most important to me. Teachers' time is extremely valuable, and with professional development, it's our goal to really make sure that we're always doing something that they feel like is worth their time. And so this is kind of a standard question on all of our feedback forms. And pretty consistently, I guess we've seen over the last couple of years anyway, on the district PD days that we try to format like this, or during the times that we released for course-alike groups to work, we get this kind of feedback because they really value the time to work with their peers, and it's just so hard to find that time. And then the other kinds of feedback we try to gather on these days is the folks that we bring in that are the national speakers tend to be around topics that we're focusing on in the district. And so, of course, standards-based instruction is one of those things we've been focusing on, and then specifically the use of some of the things you see here with proficiency scales and assessments and our PLC work. And so really trying to monitor, what's the impact of our professional development, because these big days are just a small part of it, honestly. The biggest impact is when people go back and they're trying to do these things, and then what kind of support might be there to help them kind of work through that, or people that they can help, and which is another reason why those teacher leaders are so fabulous, because they're people that they can call and ask, how is this working? I don't understand this. And it's just a way to kind of get those resources. And of course, we have folks in the building, like our strategists in our elementary buildings, that really help coach teachers as they're trying to make some of these changes. So this helps us monitor that. And we really look very carefully at the feedback always. So while there is some wonderful stuff about the PD, of course, I can't miss an opportunity to share some of the challenges too. The calendar, for the record, I never want to be on this committee. Like this whole calendar committee, no. I know how hard it is to do that. And yet that is a big challenge, always. I mean, we're all fighting for time, right? And so how do you bring forward things that you really want people to learn more about when you've got so little time? And while I feel like we're really fortunate in our district to have 7 days of professional development in our contract and in our calendar, it is this year, there's like a day and a half for this kind of work because of all the other things that need to be accomplished. And so I think it is really challenging, continues to be challenging. And then, of course, the learning that you can do on a day like October 21st is really just, you kind of talk through some things, but when you go back to actually use it, is really where the support's needed. And so, trying to make that, those shifts in some things that, I always say to teachers, we have lots of balls in the air, and every single thing that we do is really hard. Like, it's really hard to say what do you stop doing so we can make time for this, because there's so much. And then, and then when you think about, teaching literacy, for instance, I mean, that's not an easy thing. It's not like you go sit to an hour workshop and figure that out. That takes a long time to make some changes that really have impact on our students. And so it is challenging to find the time. And then that kind of leads to focus, which I think too, it's that idea of there's so many things in education that we could pick from to really try to learn more about or to think about how we could do that better for our students. And we want to do it all, right? So it's really hard to say what are we going to try to focus on in the next 3 or 4 years to get better at that. And then as a result, then what kind of slides off or takes a back burner. And those are hard decisions to make. And then this third challenge, I think, is that knowing doing. It is that balance between, as a teacher, I can sit for a whole day and learn about all these great things. And now when I go to do them, it does take some additional time, effort, support that is, all clouded with the 50 children screaming at me all day long, all the demands that come at teachers all day. So those challenges are real, and I think we just really try hard to listen to teachers and then put things in place that will respond to their needs. So that's really all I guess in terms of information I intended to share. I'd be glad to take some questions.
I'm sorry if I missed it. How many teachers attended this?
We had about 800 teachers and
About
administrators.
800. Okay, thank you.
Well, that filled out the feedback, I'll say that. And there might have been more that attended.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you for the report, and thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Log in back on? That's okay. The next item is the superintendent report, and Missy Eisnes will be giving that this evening.
Yes, there's not much to give, so
Okay.
we are going to table that until Rupak is back.
Okay. For the record, he's stuck with the weather due to airline backups, so he sends his regrets. Okay. Thank you, Missy, for sitting in for him. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Jim?
I move adoption of the consent agenda as provided in our packet.
Second.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Okay, very good, thank you. Business items. We have the superintendent evaluation, which is memo number 56. And it's opening up here. This is coming from the governance committee. We need to conduct an annual review per state law of our superintendent. And in summation, there were some great, very supportive comments of Dr. Gandhi's work and all 9 board members. What is the actual term here? Rate his work performance as satisfactory. So does anybody else have anything to add to this report this evening? John?
Rob and I would move that we accept and file this report.
Second. Okay. This is on the floor. Any further discussion? I will say thank you to everybody that took the very thoughtful comments. I know that Dr. Gandhi takes these very seriously. This is his annual review, and he's had a great first year. So a lot of complimentary things here. So it looks like we're ready for a vote. Anne Marie?
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a possible executive session. Mr. Rodenbiker.
President Nelson, I would move we enter executive session for the purpose of negotiation strategy as permitted under North Dakota Century Code Section 44-04-19.1.
Second.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor of entering executive session, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Okay, we will break for a couple of minutes while we get all of our electronics taken care of. Thank you. Okay, we'll call this school board back into session for the regular meeting. The next agenda item is board reports 7A. Rebecca, would you like to lead us through that?
Surely. Okay, I have some written information here, so just bear with me here while I refer to this, because this has to do with the visit that I had to Pankello Education Center in Elmo Lake, and that is as part of the board's research for the Setting D program. And that is a school that is part of the Northeast Metro Intermediate School District 916. The school serves students in grades K through 8. I'm letting you know that I'm providing some of this information to you from the school's website. And that website is 916schools.org. And after visiting the school and then taking a read through the website, I feel like the information on the site really accurately conveys my experience at that school. So that's why I just wanted to share some of this with you. And I know some of our school board members have been at this school and at other schools as well. So that school helps to serve children that have emotional behavioral disorders, autism spectrum disorders, developmental cognitive disabilities, and certain low incidence disabilities. Happy to have the opportunity to tour that school. And I learned more about how serving the needs of specialty students not only is about making sure that we have the teacher and the support staff in place and that they're highly skilled and trained, but really how crucial it is to provide them with the learning environment that they need, the flexibility for them to receive the individualized needs and be in a situation that provides them with that security and safety. So a few of the innovative school designs include an abundance of natural lighting and therapy lights throughout the building, flexible learning spaces for small groups and one-on-one instruction, a variety of different sensory rooms with colored lighting and student-controlled music and sounds in areas that students can go to and walk through on their own, leaving the classroom as they see fit and walking into some more open and safe areas where a staff member or a teacher is right with them, so they're safe as they move throughout their school. An outdoor playground with musical and other sensory features, an indoor playground, soft, movable, and child-friendly furniture that can be moved around and kind of, moved around and used as the students feel they need to help them work better and feel better throughout the day. Assistive and educational technology. And that building has 4 communities or kind of like neighborhoods that are within the school. So you enter the school and it's kind of a common lobby area, and then the school branches off into these different communities or neighborhoods, and then each one of those then has 5 classrooms, 5 to 8 students are in each classroom. So I'm really looking forward to the discussions that we have ongoing in our community. The day that I went to that school was the same day that the FEAT meeting was held here in Fargo. So there's been some, media coverage, and there's been some discussion here in Fargo regarding our approach to Setting D and some of the plans that we have in regard to the addition to Lewis and Clark. So I think we all know that there's been a little bit more conversation here in our community regarding the support for our plans, but I just feel like we really have, I'm thankful that to administration, that board members have had the opportunity to tour some of these schools, and that administrators have gone and researched and really, made available to us the opportunity to conduct that research so that as we're moving forward and making the decisions, as additional proposals come to us for the plans, that we're better prepared to make the decisions. And really, I feel like we are going to be at a place where the Fargo School District is going to be working with our community, with our broad-based community, to offer some exceptional opportunities for the kids that need it. And I really believe that taking a look at schools like Pancalo, that's just a really excellent example of collaborative effort to provide this kind of an opportunity for the kids. And you know, there is some criticism, we've seen that in the media, but I believe we need to keep moving forward with our conversations here, and see where it lands. But I really think that as a community, we're going to be able to come together on this, and realizing that it's not only about skilled staff, but it's also about the environment that the staff spends their time in, and about the students. So it's not one or the other. And it's still a challenge for the community, but I'm really, again, thankful for having the opportunity to take a look at this, and looking forward to making decisions as we move forward. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. I know, you know, we've talked about hallways that are curved. We've talked about lighting that is like LED lighting. We've talked about windows that are appropriately placed. There's a lot that other board members have shared from their visits, and so I don't need to reiterate all of that, but I wanted to just kind of share with you that I really feel like we definitely need to be looking in our community about not only the exceptional training, but providing that environment as well. I don't think they work one without the other. I think we need both. Thank you.
How do you spell the name of the school?
That is Pankalo.
Pankalo.
ALO.
And where was that located?
It's in Elmo Lake.
Where's Elmo Lake? I'm sorry. I'm not
It's just outside of the Twin Cities.
Okay. By Blaine? Ah, okay. What is that? Do you know, is it its own school district? Is it part of another school district? Is
So-
it a collaboration of districts like some of the others we've seen?
Yep, it's a collaboration. That's that Northeast Metro Intermediate School District 916, sorry. And so if you go to that website that I mentioned, 916schools.org, that highlights a variety of the different kinds of schools that 916 offers. Special education schools are some of the schools, and there are other schools within that 916.
Thank you.
So just to expand upon that, so we're Fargo School District number 1. So this was Minnesota School District 916. Do they bring any other districts in? Is it a regional hub?
So it's a combination of, and Christy, were you at this school as well? Yeah, so it's a variety of districts that are brought in as to create a special district. And from what I understand, and Missy probably would even know more, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Minnesota allows that those independent school districts to be formed. So a little bit different than what we have. We're obviously not looking at creating exactly this school here, right? We have our own research that we've done, and we've been able to learn from this school even some improvements that we'd want to make within our own district. So we're not looking at exactly replicating it from what I understand. We're looking at creating a model that'll work for our area. So, but please correct me if I'm not right.
And I'll just add one piece when you talk about the school district. They have formed their own school district. They have their own governance board at that district. And those people on that board are coming from the other school districts.
Any other questions for Rebecca? Jennifer?
Maybe just along those lines, Rebecca, maybe they shared this with you, but are any of those partnerships, you mentioned collaboration, but within the State Department of Human Services within Minnesota, are they as well on like the board or vested in this financially, or do they just provide services, or maybe Missy?
Well, I believe Missy should answer that question. I did want to mention too, some of the additional services and benefits though that are at Pankello. They include mindfulness education programming, social workers, mental health support, nursing, assistive technology, occupational and physical therapy. But Missy, you might have a direct answer to her question.
From a couple of the districts that we've talked to, they do a contracted service, but some positions are funded through the school system, but Minnesota does allow third-party billing, different codes than we're allowed to in North Dakota. So that's where that, changes things when you look at the funding. Yeah, funding streams are different, but doesn't mean we cannot get the services that we seek to provide in our, so they're not like, I think you asked, are they on the board? They are not on the boards that we saw. It was superintendents from the other districts that we saw.
And that's being discussed at the legislative level. So Senator Lee and Senator Hogan are on top of that.
Maybe a follow-up question, because I know there were multiple visits, but were they all Minnesota, or were there visits in South Dakota as well, too? 'Cause I
No,
think
we
their-
only visit Minnesota.
Okay. I think their funding structure is different as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to go, and thank you for your thorough report. The next item on the agenda is memo number 57, NDSBA sharing. I don't think this really needs a motion, but I thank everybody for filling out the reports. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? Christy?
Unfortunately, because I didn't go, I'm looking forward to reading through them. I didn't get a chance to completely read through and see what I missed since I wasn't there. So thank you for taking the time.
And I do appreciate that there were a variety of sessions where it was marked forwarded on to a committee. Boy, I want to highlight the one on mental health, behavioral health. And I know the reviews here, more than one of us attended that session. And my main takeaway from that one is, if we can all listen to that presentation, or a presentation by that individual with Department of Human Services, Pam, it would just be so beneficial. I've heard a presentation from her twice now, and so there's just so much to learn. And she is an excellent presenter. But overall, a really great conference. I feel like every year the quality is going higher and higher.
So yes, to that point, what we'll do is we'll meet out some of these recommendations to the committees and just copy and paste it to the agenda, I think. Pam and Kirsten Baszler are going to do a state tour that we are definitely going to watch for, I recommend. And I'll bring other people to it too. I agree, Pam is very impressive. She came to the Level D breakout or committee sessions too. We're lucky to have her.
We'll start with item 7C, committee liaison and correspondence reports. Rebecca, since you've started, let's just keep going from your end.
We'll finish up. I was at the United Way, Women United last week, and Native American Commission met last week. The next meeting for that group is December 5th at noon. I'm happy and pleased to report that we're moving forward. It's actually the city of Fargo that's moving forward on this, but the Native American Commission has also echoed approval that there is a person that has been hired to serve as the Fargo-Moorhead Native American Program Center consultant. It's for initial work that is going to be done to help develop a new Native American center, and that's desperately needed in the city of Fargo. The Native American Center that was in existence near First United Methodist Church is no longer available, so natives in our community really don't have the services that they need, and this person is hired to work on some pre-incorporation necessities and incorporate the organization, and then the city of Fargo will be moving forward from there in terms of looking for someone else to hire. So I just think that that's very exciting. And the Communications Committee meets November 18th at 7:30 a.m. And I sent an email out to board members asking for some input or some ideas in terms of the Communications Committee and any work that you might think we need to be looking at conducting down the road. And Betsy is looking for feedback, if anyone has it, by tomorrow. So feel free to send that to her. Other than that, I will be done for the evening. Thank you for the mic time.
Mr. Rodenbaker?
Thank you. I did, speaking of the NDSBA's annual convention, I attended that back on the 24th and 25th of October. I very much appreciate the opportunity for professional development as a board member. I think it's really important. The first day of that is dedicated to legal issues impacting school boards. That's always informative, especially the national perspective coming from that. And then on the second day, it's more local related and various topics. And I have scanned through the reports from fellow board members. I appreciate those very much, and I'm looking forward to some of these further conversations in our committees. The night of the 25th, I have to admit, I did leave the NDSBA convention just a little bit early so I could get back here in time to help represent the board at the grand opening and dedication of the new athletic field at Fargo North. And I want to congratulate them on their fundraising and that nice new facility up there. The 29th of October, I had my liaison visit at Davies. I really want to thank them for all the time I spent there. I spent most of a Friday morning, and a lot of that with Principal Cody, and I want to thank him again for extending all that time to me. A good portion of that was an all-school rally, or assembly, I should say. It felt like a rally because they had some really exciting musicians that were really hyping up the crowd, and they have a really great student body down there. That was fun, and we're really into it. Really great message, positive message from our police department. The First Lady was there talking about her path through life and some of the struggles she's overcome and how she overcame them. And then also then got to tour the school, hadn't been down there through the whole thing in quite a while. Really interesting to see what they're doing down there, how they're building their own culture while incorporating all of the various best practices we have across the district. Got to have lunch there, really good lunch. It was a chicken parm with this red sauce that was better than some I've paid for in restaurants. I mean, it was actually really good. I really like our schools and our lunches in our schools. One thing I did note through all of that touring is that's a full school. There's 1,300 kids down there. Capacity is 1,350. It's going to be 1,350 next year if our kids coming from Davies hold steady and we expect what we're going to have in the south side growth. So we need to not lose sight of our needs down on the south side of town. Also had a really good conversation about, I think I maybe saw something in the media last week about as we eventually change from report cards to progress reports, and helping our families understand why we're moving from the A through F to the 1 through 4 scales. It makes sense to me. We're measuring our growth. We're measuring progress towards our learning objectives. I think it's a good change, and I think people will come around to it as they get used to it and better understand how and what it's doing for our students and for our understanding of how our students are progressing through our schools. On the 31st of October, I got to visit Bennett, and as a visitor, I don't think there's a much better place to be than in an elementary school on Halloween. The energy in there was outstanding. So much fun. I did not dress up, but I did appreciate that. The principal had an outfit on, and many of the other teachers and staff did. Of course, the kids were having fun and treats, and it was fun to visit the school on that kind of day. I hadn't been to Bennett before, so that was a great first experience. And then the next day, on the 1st of October, I got to visit Eagles, and a very much more subdued day, the day after Halloween, teachers and kids. But it was also a very good conversation there, and getting to see, again, our Autism Academy and how that, the collaboration between kind of the more mainstream kids and the special ed kids and autism kids down there is really interesting. And it's also really good to see the great collaboration they have with their community partner, the nursing home right next to them, the assisted living center. Really heartwarming to see what was going on there. And so that's in my report. Really good experiences getting back into our schools and getting to meet with our teachers and our staffs and our kiddos. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Benson?
That was a great report. Thanks, John. And a few of my comments actually are similar to John's in that I had some questions too around, or had been asked questions around standard-based grading, and so reached out to Troy, and he so graciously offered to educate me on some of the answers to those questions moving forward. And so I just wanted to share with you all that there is going to be additional opportunities for parents and community to learn more about that system and how it's being implemented throughout Fargo Public Schools. And the meeting is going to take place at Davies on November 21st at 6 p.m. In addition to that, the the Health Insurance Committee next meeting is Tuesday the 19th at 4 o'clock. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Paulson?
I have been to Claire Barton, Hawthorne, and Centennial already. I will be meeting with both of their PTAs. I believe Claire Barton is this week and Centennial's next week. And then there's communications on Monday, and that should wrap it up until the next meeting.
Great.
I too went to the North Dakota School Boards Association convention, and Jennifer Benson and Robin Nelson both won awards, and congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
And Jim helped do some things at the state level, which is cool to see your fellow people help out. I was at the Peyton Manning Voices Chamber event, which was great. He's an awesome speaker, just a good man. It was good. I got to sit by Jim and for the facilities management, and so we had a good time. I was able to go to the Dracula event play at Davies on Saturday. Tremendous. It's unbelievable the talent these kids have, and the makeup and the special effects, and it was really good. And then we have a planning meeting on November 15th here on Friday, and that's what's going on.
Before you leave the mic, happy birthday. Today is the day.
Thank you.
Brandy?
Thank you. I would also like to thank everybody who went to the NDSBA and the reports. I'm looking forward to reading all those. So thank everybody for that. And then today I went to my third school visit, which was Madison, met with Mr. Olson. That was a great meeting. We had he pretty much educated me on a lot of stuff that was going on in that school. So that was wonderful. And then I did the last week United Way luncheon, and then the ribbon cutting as well over at North High. And I also plan on doing some PTA visits here within the next few months as well. And happy birthday, Brian. That's all I have.
Christy?
Today I had the opportunity to go to my school, McKinley, and observe a veterans program. They've been doing it for several years, and it was really nice to have all of the veterans stand up and be recognized. And it was either nephews, nieces, great-nephews, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, so a really nice crowd there. The gym was filled. They sang several songs. The very end, they waved their pom-poms, and so that was great. I'll be going back to McKinley, visiting with the principal there and learning more about their school. And I do have going to head out to Longfellow soon. I have planning this coming Friday. I was at the United Way luncheon. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I had surgery, so I couldn't go to the NDSBA, but I'm looking forward to reading those reports. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, I'll start with the most recent. Bob and I are both on I don't know, they keep calling it a convening, so I'm not sure what we are, but we're apparently a group of about 45 people the state has put together to really look at what we have to change in state policies, state funding, to really move towards a student-centered learning environment, which is, I think, what we're going to turn personal learning into is student-centered learning. And for those of you that are going to Davies on 11/21 to learn about grading, and just tell them to buckle up because it's going to get a lot more different than they think. We're talking about eliminating grades. There would not be a 9th grade, a 10th grade, 11th grade, and a 12th grade. We're talking about eliminating GPAs in terms of entrance into North Dakota colleges, really going to a competency-based education system from ground zero through higher ed. That's what we're talking about. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in any short duration, but we're going to take baby steps to move there. At this second meeting of this group, we really tried to prioritize next steps. We broke into 5 different subgroups, 4 different subgroups. I'm not sure what the other 3 did because I was in mine, but the one I was involved with, there were really 2 primary themes that we're going to push forward. One is social emotional learning has to get addressed. Otherwise, nothing else that we talked about the entire day matters. If we can't get a handle on how we're going to address these behavior issues statewide, not just in Fargo, the rest of what we're all talking about is it's gravy without any mashed potatoes to put it on. So that's priority number 1. Priority number 2 of my group was to really sit down with higher ed. Because there is a massive feeling between administrators primarily that teachers that are graduating from college are not equipped for the environment we're putting them into, and they're certainly not equipped to deal with student-centered learning models. So big discussions are going to happen between K-12 and higher ed to hopefully get us all on one page moving forward. That being said, I think higher ed is open to those conversations. They need somebody to kind of give them the spark plug to change the way they're doing things. Just for an instance, in the old days, apparently when somebody thought they wanted to go into teaching, they actually did a practicum in their freshman year to go shadow a teacher, as opposed to student teaching at the end of a 4-year career to realize this is not a place I want to be. So we really need to rethink what we're doing to train teachers to be effective. The other groups were on different topics, and I'm sure when Bob's here, he'll share what his group came up with. I was at the North Dakota State Conference as well. I, in addition, went to 2 board meetings there. Probably the big highlight out of that is the state is going to launch a new tool that we're going to make available at a very low cost to school districts, but we're also going to sell it to other entities that have boards, primarily nonprofits, but it could be a Cass County Commission. And it is really an electronic methodology to get rid of the multitude of paper that comes with a board meeting and the multitude of documents that have to be sifted through by the public to figure out what that entity is doing. So I think that will be a pretty exciting addition and a new revenue stream for the state board, the state association. A couple of updates I want to give you from the National School Board, mostly because they jumped off the page at me, and I'm not sure. I get this because I'm on the state leadership level, and I don't know why they're not distributing this wholesale to everybody. First and foremost, kind of an interesting thing, there's a movement afoot in Canada to abolish school boards. It's actually happened in Nova Scotia. And they're going province to province, trying to put together a message and get it on the ballot to eliminate school boards. We obviously, as a national association, are advocating for the local school boards in Canada. We believe that there is a lot of money behind this movement, and it's primarily from those people that are doing online education for profit, trying to eliminate the traditional model of public education and get those dollars into a profit model for their business. Probably not a good thing in the long run, but certainly something we'll watch and see if it starts to trickle into the states. From a legal perspective, the NSBA has filed 3 amicus briefs with the Supreme Court. The first subject was, really all 3 of these have to do with taking state resources into private education. The first is to hold and agree with the Montana Supreme Court, who invalidated the state's tax credit for a scholarship program for private schools. Similar action happened in Maine. That's a different circuit court, so that too has gone to the Supreme Court. And in Michigan, there is a court case being brought to the Supreme Court to overturn on state constitutional grounds the state statute aiding private schools. So while there's a movement afoot in Canada to eliminate school governance and put private enterprise into the equation, there's a movement afoot in the U.S. to get tax dollars to fund private education. And you know, there's good and bad to that. But at the end of the day, there's only so many public dollars, and it comes down to whether or not that's in the best interest of public education as well. Last but certainly not least, I think you've probably caught this on the news. If you haven't, you'll be catching it in our up-and-coming food and nutrition reports probably next year. And thank you to everybody in the community that is trying to do fundraising for lunch debt. And I'm here to tell them they got to double down because the administration is putting forward a change through the Agricultural Department on the SNAP program, and that will eliminate nearly 1 million students from being eligible for free and reduced lunch that currently get free and reduced lunch. So obviously we as a national association are advocating against this, but it isn't a legislative issue. It is a regulatory issue that is being done through this administration. And it appears that it's going to go forward, which means we're going to have a lot, I don't know what percentage of our free and reduced will no longer be eligible, but one of the ways you're automatically eligible is if your family is eligible for SNAP. And if 1 million families are coming off SNAP, that's probably about 3 million plus kids. When you talk a family, you know, probably 2 kids per household, maybe, I don't know. So that's what's going on nationally, some pretty serious things. Last but not least, the Community Development Committee is meeting next week. I think we're going to get a lot of report back from our conversation at the last meeting regarding what, if anything, the city can do to address the concerns of folks that are living in trailer parks. I think you're all aware of the fact that an outfit out of Utah, I believe they're out of Utah, acquired, I think, 3 trailer parks in the Fargo, West Fargo area and a couple out in Bismarck. And they're doing improvements, raising rents, changing the lease agreements, and it appears that some people are probably going to end up homeless in this equation. Now, I'm not here saying that this person or entity that's acquired the trailer parks is doing anything wrong. They want to make improvements and make it a better place for the residents. But there are clearly people that live in some of those that the house can't even be moved. They are trailer houses, quote unquote, but after they've sat in one location for 40, 50 years, as soon as you put a trailer hitch on them to pull them away, you just rip the thing apart because it's really not built to be a mobile unit on a permanent basis. So we'll see where that goes. At the last meeting, the city really didn't think they had many tools, but you know, there are some things that perhaps they can do. Much like we have rent assistance programs for elderly and low-income people, maybe they can redirect some of those dollars into a program to help with these rent increases that some of these people on a fixed income are facing. Or look at another movement that's going on in the country. I don't know if you all caught this, but there are a lot of communities building tiny house neighborhoods to address their homeless populations, and maybe that's something in Fargo's future too. So I'll keep you posted as it develops at the Community Development Committee. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you for that very positive report, Mr. Johnson. Let's see here. A couple of things that I have been doing. Obviously, I was at the law seminar and the annual conference. Those notes are in the packet. Fargo Cass Public Health Board, we have been working diligently on some vaping issues and how those are being clearly marketed to youth. There will be some activity coming out probably from that group. How that happens, we don't know, whether it comes through a city ordinance or if it comes through some legislation, but please keep an eye on that. To the point of the feeding programs, I was asked to sit on a panel at the Health and Hunger Summit that was October 30th, and on that panel, I was invited because of my position here, but also because of my position in my full-time job. On that panel was Hoban's representative, and Carla Hansen was there, as was NDU and Moorhead City Commissioner. That was a big topic of conversation as far as SNAP goes. The food bank is putting together some communications that you can just click, hit, and send to communicate with our federal government on that. The lunch debt was a big conversation. It was a full day worth of how to address hunger in our community. Obviously, there was a big emphasis on youth, but also mental health really played into that. Rory Beal had a great presentation on that, and our very own Cindy Hoganson talked about how our free and reduced lunch programs are funded through the feds, and how that funding all works through our local district. And it was a very enlightening panel. A lot of people that have great motivations and want to take care of the community and take care of their hunger. But I reminded them that we are probably of like mind in that room, and we might come up with some different issues there. I know that there are going to be some conversations about hunger and free and reduced lunches at the Legacy Fund meetings. That's a formal thing. One thing that is glaringly missing from that conversation is hot breakfast. And we forget about that is part of the free and reduced program. So I know that they have a proposal that we need $53 million from the Legacy Fund to cover hot lunches, but it doesn't address breakfast. So I talked to Courtney Schaff about that. Let's see here. I attended the Horace Mann Roosevelt PTA meeting, which was fun since Horace Mann is my alma mater. I attended the United Way Women's Luncheon, and the speaker was very insightful about the importance of early childhood education and how the ROI on early intervention and prevention, and so that was very useful. As a reminder, and I sent this out today, tonight we missed the Legacy Fund hearing where different constituents were allowed to share what they thought the Legacy Fund would be used for. But there is a part 2 of that tomorrow morning, 8:30 to noon. And we did public notice that if anyone wants to attend, you're welcome to do that. It's more report heavy tomorrow, but I encourage you, if you're able to, at least stop by. It's over at NDSU. And then other than that, you have the president's report in front of you that Anne Marie so kindly types for me. So any other comments for tonight? Go ahead.
I just got to take this moment to thank Anne Marie Campbell for presenting at the North Dakota School Boards Association. She got nothing but rave reviews, and now she is on all future agendas to present going forward.
I'm sorry, no, I got to say it. There was a very unfortunate sound system disaster, and so the Justin Timberlake Sunshine in My Pocket played for about 5 minutes. And you handled yourself very calmly and composed, and I will think of Anne Marie now every time I hear that song. So, but it was very well attended, so yes, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, the next board meeting is November 26th, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.